If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
We are Inveigles Media.
Night, Mr. Walters.
You see that guy over there? No, he's an actor. The guy on the phone? He's a prize fighter. Me? I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Good evening and welcome to Night, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I'm HP, your co-host, and with me as always is my co-host, Father Malone. Father Malone, how are you this evening?
I'm just waiting for something better to come along, HP. You know, like death. Starting off with vaudeville. Bop.
We are going over Taxi Season 2, Episode 14, Louie Meets The Folks. This was written by Barry Kemp, and it was directed by James Burrows. Reminder, we're doing these shows in broadcast order and not in order of filming. So we're kind of into a romantic group of episodes. We dealt with Rieger's love life and Alex's romance, and we dealt with Elaine and Elaine's secret admirer. And I guess it's Louie's turn in this episode, Father Malone, because we open in the garage. As Tony gets off the payphone, he's crowing to Alex and Elaine about a rematch with Rocky Cinecore. I love that name. It must be, to your point that you always make, it's got to be the name of an editor or a script supervisor, but Rocky Cinecore, it's a great name.
Or somebody that they knew, like in childhood. Oh, I knew that guy named Rocky Cinecore. Oh, that's good.
You couldn't make up a name like Rocky Cinecore. It's great. So Bobby then struts in as only Bobby can, and he's holding what he calls his first fan letter. Some weirdo who saw Bobby in one of his commercials wants him to send them a lock of his hair, a used pillow, and a shirt, which apparently Bobby has done. And what I noted here is, what would Bobby do in the age of OnlyFans? He'd be having a blast.
Yeah, he wouldn't be the cab driver. You make taxi now, that's where Bobby Wheeler is. Bobby Wheeler would be a fare, and a really well tipping fare, because he'd have buku bucks. If he has fans like this based on a commercial, think about this. This is like, what, 1980 something or other? So some weirdo had to see a commercial, go, oh my God, that's the most gorgeous human on earth. Contact the product that was being advertised, to find out the advertising agency, to contact the casting agent to discover who this actor was, so that they could then write them a letter asking for these things. He would clean the fuck up.
He would. There's teachers now that take up OnlyFans as a sideline, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can only imagine what a stud like Bobby would be pulling down on OnlyFans. Just shake his hair a little bit, show a little more of his chest with his shirt buttoned all the way down to his navel. He'd be great. Unfortunately, this episode isn't all about Bobby and his crazed superfans. At this point, Zena, remember Zena? Zena glides in to service the candy machine, which has once again mysteriously replaced the coffee machine. Did you notice that, Father Malone, all of a sudden?
Yeah, every time Rhea Perlman shows up, suddenly the set decoration goes kind of bonkers. What's up?
I know I shouldn't feel this way, but it always makes me feel a little bit like they're shoehorning her into the proceedings solely because she was, I don't know that they were married, but she was certainly dating Danny DeVito at this point. But it always feels like they move heaven and earth to fit her into these episodes when she's not on that often. But when she is on, they have to replace the coffee machine, which is where so much action happens in the garage. So I always get a little miffed by that. And it's not fair to Rhea Perlman. I recognize that, but I don't know. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. How do you feel about that, having her back in the garage like this?
I don't like her character, so I'm ambivalent to her being here. I don't think I'm miffed that she's there. I understand her necessity as a character. I do rankle at them changing the set decoration drastically every time she shows up. It's like, just have her be the fucking repairman for the coffee machine now or something. Or why does she have to still be the candy girl? I don't think this in any way has anything to do. I mean, obviously they know her probably through Danny DeVito, but I don't think that they keep having her on the show because of Danny DeVito. I think they probably love Rhea Perlman, as we would all come to love Rhea Perlman. I love Rhea Perlman. You love Rhea Perlman. We all love Rhea Perlman, but we love Carla. I don't like Zena.
It is curious. You make a great point that they should just make her the coffee repair person, or she could be a FedEx delivery person. There's all sorts of ways that they could figure out to have her in the garage without having to put the candy machine, which only ever, it's kind of like an eclipse. It only appears once in a blue moon. There it is. There's the candy machine. And only when Xena has to service it. So it's a little
Have her
odd.
work for Ma Bell. They always need that phone. The phone could constantly be breaking down. It's an instant excuse to get in there, get her in there without having to move one piece of furniture.
Makes a world of sense.
And
I
then
don't
they
know.
could call her Ma Bell as a cute nickname.
This is true. While Xena is busying herself with the candy machine, Louie creeps in and tries to say hi to her, but curiously she responds, "Get lost." And Louie's embarrassed by this and he tries to play it off, but Xena is having none of it. There's something going on. This is going to be, we're witnessing the formation of the A plot in this episode. She's upset at him, and I think I know why, but let's see how it unfolds. Privately, Xena insists to Louie that all she asked him for was a simple favor, and he couldn't even do that. And Louis counters that something like this could blow everything up. Trouble in paradise? Louis tries to act tough, but Xena calls his bluff, and she hustles out of the garage as Louis kicks the bench in frustration. The cabbies all start to gossip about what's going on. And actually, funny enough, Bobby makes the most sort of salient point of all of them. And he says it must be hard for Louis having no friends to talk to in times like this, which I think is a very savvy thing for him to say, you know?
He's an actor. He's an act. You know, he's an observer of human behavior. He can certainly see the good in Louis. As we know, he has been gearing up his entire life for his one-man show, Louis De Palma. So it only makes sense that he's cluing right into Louis's despair in this situation. In this HP, I might be jumping ahead, but during Xena and Louis's conversation, is the Emperor and the slave girl mentioned here?
Yeah, it is.
But yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So Louis says, I don't want to meet your parents, whatever. And she says, well, there's nothing, I don't want anything to do with you. And he says, wait, we can't, basically we're not going to be having sex anymore. But he phrases it as no more Emperor and the slave girl, right? And then she stands up and you see that they're both the same height. And now for the rest of the scene, I have to imagine Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, who are married in real life, doing Emperor and the slave girl in their abode. And it was off-putting. This whole scene was off-putting because we had grovelly, hyperactive Louis De Palma. I did not like this act. I did not like this scene in any way. I just wanted to say that before we move on.
Yeah, it does pose a curious image, and you used the word rankle earlier, and I think it's a perfect way to describe the scenario. But yeah, it is.
Does he have laurels on his head? Right? You know he's got a cape. Sure. Rhea Perlman, how is her hair? I don't know. I'm already thinking too much about it.
I think that's way too advanced for him. I think he's probably just taken a bed sheet and wrapped it hurriedly around him like a toga and maybe like a one of his belts around I don't think he's
Sure.
going to Party City and buying an emperor costume. I think he's whatever's handy Louis is using.
She has a towel with a hole cut in the middle, like over her. That's her slave girl outfit.
What you're saying is getting to the heart of some real problems that I have with this episode, and we're going to continue to get into it. But I don't really love desperate, grovelly Louis. There's something about that just doesn't. I know it's all part of humanizing him and making him less of a monster and more of a real human who has needs and foibles and all that kind of stuff. But I call me crazy, but I like the imperious sort of Louis that is the master of the garage that everybody likes to poke fun at, that he's always in the mix, as Louis often is. Not the monstrous Louis, but the Louis that is just in the garage barking orders at everybody. And this is setting kind of a dangerous precedent for me. Do you feel the same way? Or are you enjoying this peek into another facet of Louis's personality?
HP, once again, you have crystallized my thoughts exactly. Yes, I think this goes fundamentally against Louis de Palma's character, which is ultimately he doesn't give a fuck what any of those cabbies think about him and his life. And if he's having a fight with his girlfriend over there, his reaction wouldn't be, haha, no, everything's fine, everybody. Look over there. It would be, get back to work. What the fuck are you looking at? Are there not people who need rides? Are there not cabs that need to be fixed right now? Mind your business or fucking go home. That would be Louis de Palma. And it would not in any way undercut what's to come, which is sensitive Louis is actually freaking out about this situation.
Couldn't agree more. What we're getting here, I'm afraid, is we're getting the Louis that tremulously says to Zena, "Take me to the place that you cry," which might be the most horrifying line that Louis certainly.
Why did you bring it up?
Because that is the last time that I got the same vibe from Louis. Is the sensitive, caring, awkwardly moving towards his relation. It gives me the chills just thinking about it. But that's what we've got here. It's pretty it's a very inauspicious beginning to this episode. Getting back to the scene at hand here, Jim, hearing all of this, hearing Bobby talk about how Louis has no friends and he needs to talk to someone, Jim foolishly volunteers to talk to Louis, to the mixed protests of the rest of the cabbies. And you were talking about vaudeville. We're about to get a real serious dose of vaudeville here. So Jim enters the cage to Louis's consternation. Jim lowers all of the cage shades and starts leading. Now, what we're getting here, let me interrupt myself for a minute here. What we're getting is we keep making the point that this is Jim pre-acid casualty, fuzzy-headed stoner all of the time. This is the more sensitive Jim, the Jim from Elaine's Secret Admirer, the one who considers himself a man of the cloth and is more of a 60s idealist. So he's in this cage with Louis, the shades are down, and he starts leading Louis through a meditation exercise. After a few ohms, they do this a few times, you hear the sound of snoring, and Tony exclaims, "It worked!" Now, I didn't remember this part at all from this episode, but I knew exactly what was coming. Did you not have the same feeling going into this? To no one's surprise, the cage shades roll up, and Jim is in fact the one who is asleep after the meditation exercise. He's the one who's snoring, and Louis is the one who's like, "Get this guy out of here." So Bobby and Tony physically carry Jim out and lay him on a table in the garage, while Louis asks Rieger to speak alone. And Rieger asks where can they be alone, which is curious because he's forgetting Laka's secret tool room getaway in the back where he drinks Brefnish and probably sleeps on the job. But for some reason, that doesn't come to mind here.
Or how about go upstairs or go around the corner to Mario's? Like, what are they talking about here? Okay, go ahead.
It does. It is a stretch for a really, really dumb joke. Louis gets on his little microphone there and demands that everyone leave the garage except for Rieger. And this leads to another slapstick routine with Bobby and Tony. They dump a still sleeping Jim into a rolling trash barrel and slide him out of the garage to applause that to me sounded curiously canned. Did you notice that through this whole episode? There's the applause and the laughter just seemed a little too ecstatic. I don't know. It was a little disheartening for me.
I know I didn't notice that, but I think sometimes audiences just are that fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs about seeing people do funny shit with television cameras running. But before we move on with Jim rolling away and that thing, you noticed it was on wheels. Like they didn't want to burden poor Tony Banta and Bobby Wheeler with actually lifting Jim Ignatowski one more time. That would have broken them. Yeah, here's what I found amusing about the entire scene. When they're in Louie's cage, they've pulled down the shade, so no one is privy to what's going on in there, except the two extras who are standing next to the door where they have not pulled the shade down. So they're just literally staring through the grate at whatever the fuck is going on in there. I just watched them the entire time. That was the best part of the scene because everything else was garbage. The joke was lazily set up. Then get him out of here. Get him out of here. Shake him awake. Fucking hit him. It'll go, and leave. They pick him up and he's unconscious. Did he hypnotize himself?
It was weird. It was as if he had been given some kind of a drug or something because he's unresponsive. I would be checking that man's vitals if he's not able to be shaken awake. Maybe he had a cardiac event while he was going through this exercise. It was a little odd.
There's a version of this world where Banta and Wheeler are rolling Reverend Jim's corpse down the sidewalks of New York City.
But I'm stuck on this idea. I didn't notice this. So as this sort of pantomime bit is playing out, you're saying that there were some extras that were staring right through the grate in the cage?
When you walk into the garage, like right there where the garage door meets the little cubicle office thing, that corner, there's two people just standing there. They've been there the entire scene. And so then they go up into the thing, pull down the shades, and they just turn and look through the grate.
I noticed the people hanging out there because I always notice the extras. They're always awesome. But I didn't notice that they just stared at what was happening behind closed doors. They wheel Jim out. Rieger protests a little to Louie, but eventually he relents and listens to Louie's tale of woe. And Louie gets
wait. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt because there's an effortless bit of physical comedy here that took my breath away and they did not linger on it at all, which is Louie goes to slam the entire garage door shut as everyone's filing out, and Rieger goes with them. And then before he can get even a little bit further, there's another door that opens up within the giant garage door, like a regular door. And he opens that and grabs Rieger and pulls him through. Like as the giant door is sliding, he pulls this other door open and pulls Rieger from the other side and then closes that door. It's masterful.
It was like something out of the Three Stooges. It was because it's so effortless the way that he just grabs them and pulls them through. You're right. I didn't note that because I'm cutting to the chase a little bit here, but you're right. It was really a nice nugget of physical comedy in the midst of all of this hackiness.
So, I would say it's the best thing in the episode, but something better's coming.
I would agree with you there. And I wonder if we're going to agree on what we think is the best thing.
Duh. We know it's coming.
Yeah, we do. So Louie gets right to the point that Zena wants Louie to meet her parents, which I think we all knew that this was going to be. Well, the episode title gives it away, of course. Evidently, Zena is very, very close to her parents. This is very important to her that they meet the man that she's dating. Louie's not opposed to meeting them as he's been seriously considering marriage and kids, which is fine, whatever. Louie describes her parents as decent people, which is really worrying him. Zena's father, it turns out, is even a minister, which actually delights Alex when he hears it, which is funny. I think he cackles when he hears that. Alex loves when Louis just digs himself into a hole deeper and deeper. We've already knocked this episode quite a bit, and I think we're going to continue to knock it here and there. But one thing I think we can agree on is it is always fun when they pair off Louis and Alex, because they kind of are the anti of each other. Alex is the essentially decent person, the last honest man. And Louis couldn't be more corrupted if you tried. I mean, he's written that way. So it's always nice to see how they pair off against each other. And I don't know, that part of it is sort of delightful to me. How did you feel about that?
Well, they're like the elementals of Sunshine Cab, right? They're both lifers. They're both permanent residents. One of them is good and one of them is evil. On occasion, they're going to sit down and talk because they are really ultimately the only ones who can relate to one another.
It's you've said it more eloquently than I could have there, which is they're two sides of the same coin, if you will. As much as we're going to knock it, that part of it's fun. I mean, Judd Hirsch and Danny DeVito are pros, and it's fun to watch them work with each other here. Even though the writing, let's face it, is failing them.
We have established that Rieger is Batman, so obviously Louis De Palma's the Joker. I mean, it actually makes sense.
Well, he's the Penguin. That's what he is. We all know he's the Penguin.
But Batman's actual nemesis is the Joker. Come on, that Louis is more Joker than Penguin here. He's more chaotic than the Penguin. Although actually, the Penguin Penguin's a gangster, really, but his Penguin was not a gangster. So I don't know.
Yeah, his Penguin was subterranean, which I think suits Louis much more than the sort of Burgess Meredith Penguin. So yeah, I would agree with you there. Louis asks Alex to come with him to meet her parents, his reasoning being that Alex can make a good impression on Louis's behalf, and also he can try to keep Louis from embarrassing himself. And after some begging and pleading, finally Louis offers Alex $200 to help him out, which of course convinces Alex to do it straight away, and we fade to black.
Did you mention that we were going to be beating up on this series? I mean, on this episode? Because I hated this entire setup.
Yeah, me too. It's funny to hear you say that you hated everything except for one thing. And I had that exact same reaction, and we're getting to that. But to get to that, we've got to wade through all of this sitcom-y bullshit and all of this hackiness and all of this vaudevillian nonsense.
Can you see that? Can you see the way the lights are flickering? Those yellow lights?
They're winking out one at a time here. So we cut to one of Taxi's patented voyeuristic B-roll shots. This is one of James Burrows' stock in trade up to this point. It's an outside shot in the evening. It's a creepy camera pan up to an apartment at night, which is apparently the Sherman residence, Sherman being Zena's last name. But it always gives me the impression that it's some creepy person in the street who's kind of glaring up at somebody's apartment or somebody's condo. I know what they're doing. They're establishing where the scene's going to take place, but it always seems a little more creepy than that to me. Do you
HB, you know who it is? Burns.
I thought you were going to say it's Martin Scorsese and Taxi Driver, in Bickle's cab.
Oh, it's much worse than that. It's somebody planning the downfall of everyone, not just the murder of his wife.
We cut inside as Zena's mother, Mrs. Sherman, is answering the doorbell. She's carrying a little tray of cheese and crackers for the evening, and she brings it into the living room. She answers the door, and Zena enthusiastically greets her with a hug. But again, another vaudevillian piece of comedy. Zena's mom mistakes Rieger for Louis, and she gives him a big hug, and then she conceals just a touch of disappointment when Zena corrects her and says, "No, this is Alex Rieger. This is Louis." We're going to see this repeated when Mr. Sherman comes in as well. I'm going to spoil that right now. Zena, by the way, is wearing a bright red vest over a white button-down shirt, which makes her look a little like, did you ever see the video for Too Much Time on My Hands by Styx? Dennis DeYoung favored a gambler type outfit with his curly hair playing the keyboards. She looked like Dennis DeYoung and Styx Did you what did you think of the sartorial choice?
Oh yeah, I guess she did.
Maybe a little bit of Doug Henning in there too, but it was an odd choice.
She always seems to be hosting a children's show, as far as I'm concerned, except when she's at work. And even then, that might be a whole other show. That could be a Sesame Street children's show kind of a thing, or Electric Company.
Yeah, you feel like if she took off that delivery uniform, maybe she'd have like rainbow suspenders and a couple of buttons that say
Wow.
Louis. It tries making some complimentary small talk, which leads to an offensive comment towards Mrs. Sherman. And this elicits a warning grunt from Alex. Alex is already keeping an eye on Louis. Louis redirects to the cheese and cracker plate and he starts scarfing it down like crazy. And Louis demands that Alex say something classy to better reflect the kind of person he associates with. The whole thing is getting awkward really fast. And I know that's the point of the scene, but it's so like ham-handed and over the top that I felt it was awkward for a totally different reason. What did you think? How this is playing out so far?
You know what this feels like? This feels like a B plot featuring Lenny and Squeaky from Laverne and Shirley.
It does feel like a Laverne and Shirley episode.
Right. And I'm not bagging on Laverne and Shirley because this type of comedy is fine. And they did it very, very well because they were very smart about it. They knew they were trading on cliches. These just seem to be the cliches. And as funny as they look, I'm not one to revel in uncomfortable comedy. I'm not a cringe comedian enjoyment sort of fella. So watching Louis consistently embarrass himself here is not my cup of tea. And I think they think that that's enough to transcend what are the oldest sitcom fucking tropes of all time here.
Well, you can do, I guess you'd call it cringe comedy. And when it's done well, for me, it's something like a Larry David, like a Curb Your Enthusiasm, where that show really exclusively traffics in awkwardness and to a certain degree, Seinfeld as well. That works for me because it's so much more, their brand of this type of comedy is so much more low key and so much more biting and socially interesting. Whereas this is the type of cringe comedy where you see somebody trying their best to do something and failing miserably at it and just getting worse and worse and worse. And it just makes me feel like I want to turn off the television because I just can't, I can't take it. It's so awkward. I don't know. It's the writing.
The Larry David version of cringe comedy is finding yourself in a escalating ridiculous situation based on social niceties that have to be broken, and you sort of relate to him ultimately. The cringe comedy the taxi writers are trafficking in here is somebody walks out of a bathroom and toilet paper is sticking out of their pants.
It just didn't work for me either. Mrs. Sherman leaves to go check on the roast. Now, side note, I haven't really mentioned the apartment set yet. It's fine, but when you see Mrs. Sherman leave for the kitchen, what I thought was interesting was she goes through a set of bifold doors to get to the kitchen. It looks like she's going into a closet or the laundry room. That's what I associate with bifold doors. It's usually a utility room of some sort, but yet she's going into the kitchen. Was this the custom in the late 70s, early 80s, and I'm just misremembering, Father Malone?
I remember those not being very prevalent, but I don't remember them being out of place. I mean, certainly when they walked into the set and she motioned to the kitchen, I thought they were going to have to go through the dark room to get there. But then again, I also remember like this was a crafty 70s way of destroying an open floor plan because God forbid you had one of those.
It was weird to me because, like I said, I always, even now, like in my closet downstairs, my utility closet has those sort of what do you call like those sort of vents, whatever you call
They
those.
are accordion doors.
Yeah. And I just never thought of it being, usually I think of something like a show like Rhoda, where the kitchen, if you remember, is actually just separated by kind of a bar It's open. It's completely open. So you can see the kitchen from the living room. But this was an odd choice for me because it cuts off those. But I guess I take that back. There's a reason why they want to cut
Oh
off
yeah, you know why. I mean,
the kitchen.
they
Yeah.
have a set and they were like, what, are we really going to build another wall? Like, we don't really have enough room to get the cameras and everything. Just get one of those, like they separate it. It is the kind of doors that you would see on like a train compartment or something.
I see where you're going with that. After Zena's mom leaves, Louis exclaims that he's got her eating out of the palm of his hand. His newfound confidence is then tested when Mr. Sherman comes in. And he's even got the liturgical, I don't know, there's a word for it, but it's the liturgical collar. He's got the priest's collar on his neck and everything. Is there a word for that? I'm not familiar with, Father Malone, what you call that collar.
I'm a fake priest. I don't know the names of these things.
Louis goes too far again. He's over laughing at Mr. Sherman's jokes and making it super awkward. And like I said, Mr. Sherman even does the same thing that his wife did, which is mistake Rieger for Louis in the hopes that it's not this dumpy guy who's built like a fire hydrant that's dating his daughter.
HP, can I be honest with you? I thought we were already through dinner.
It takes a long time to get through this. I promised you this, Father Malone, and I'm going to deliver.
Yes.
We have another Joe Dante connection. Do you know who this is?
Lay it on me. This one eluded me, and that's rare when it comes to Mr. Dante.
I confess this isn't something that I know off the top of my head. Obviously, I had to look this up. But Mr. Sherman is played by an actor named John C. Betcher, Becher. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. John C. Betcher. All you need to know is that he played a character named Dr. Molinaro in Gremlins. You remember the scene where Billy's mom fights off the gremlins in her kitchen and one goes in the blender and she gets kind of beat up. And then Billy takes her to the doctor's home to get looked at. And he's like trimming the tree, I think, with his wife. That's John C. Betcher. I think that's the extent of his. Yeah, it's pretty cool, I thought. I mean, he's not
Good
like
work,
one of the
HP.
main. He's not a mainstay like some of the other actors we've brought up, but this is really becoming 6 Degrees of Joe Dante because so many people have worked with him. It's amazing. So there you go. I was sure you would know about that. I'm surprised you didn't have that filed away somewhere.
No, I don't know what priest collars are names, and I don't know all the extras in Joe Dante movies.
Oh, yeah,
I shouldn't call him extras. Obviously, he's like a featured player here and there. I found him very, very funny, actually. I found both of the parents very funny, particularly in the next scene.
After more sort of cringy interaction, Zena goes off to help her mom, which leaves the 3 men to commiserate in the living room. And there's more awkwardness from Louis, and Alex even cuts him off preemptively when he starts in on a story about his mother. It's very awkward. Louis continues with this inappropriate chit-chat as Alex inhales his glass of wine, and we fade into the dining room as they're seated for dinner. Louis continues to overact and go too far with his inappropriate humor and jokes as Alex tries in vain to corral Louis. Mr. Sherman asks Zena about their dating history, and Alex earns a dirty look when Zena tells them that Alex introduced them. So now they're turning against Alex when they realize that he's responsible for introducing their daughter to this maniac. The icing on all of this is Louis tells the table that Zena is the first non-pro that he's ever been out with, which shocks everybody. And it just keeps going downhill from there because he's got to explain what he means by a pro. And it's Alex all but gives up on Louis at this point. Finally, Mrs. Sherman announces she's going to clear the table and bring coffee, but asks Louis to stay and help her. And we're getting to the only part of this episode that I liked. Is this the same moment that you're referring to, Father Malone?
Oh my, yes. And the scene following.
It really saves this episode from being just complete and utter, one yellow light territory here.
Tell them what happens, HP, so we can talk about it because it's so fucking fantastic.
It is. It's this wonderful left turn that this episode takes because you sort of feel like
so good. It's completely out of left field. In fact, HP, I got to be honest, it happened and I went, did that just happen? And I rewound it and watched the scene again and went, yeah. I thought it was I slipped into a fever dream.
What happens is Mrs. Sherman, it's just Louie and Mrs. Sherman in the dining room cleaning up. And Mrs. Sherman confesses that she didn't really need the help from Louie. She wanted to talk with Louie in private. And she says that she and her husband tried very hard not to limit Zena's social relationships. She realizes that Zena, being the daughter of a minister, is often difficult. She finally gets to the point and she announces she's giving her blessing to the relationship, which to this point, we're still feeling like this is typical sitcom claptrap. She encourages Louie to continue dating Zena, have fun, do all of those things. But Mrs. Sherman stipulates it wouldn't be a good idea to contemplate anything more serious like marriage. Because, and I wrote this down, this is the best part of the episode. If he does, Mrs. Sherman will have Louie killed. She's so proper and sweet, Zena's mother. Hearing these words spoken by her is such a welcome shift in this episode. Up till now, it's been such a sitcom slog. It's rote. This is such a nice, unexpected twist.
Oh my God, it was like getting hit in the chest with a hammer. And just because of the sentiment, but then on top of it is the matter-of-factness. And as you said, it's a sweet matter-of-factness. There's no menace in any of her words, or rather her tone. It's just going to happen. You can date my daughter, that's fine. But if you want to marry her, I'm going to murder you. Or have you murdered?
It's played so well because she is the typical sweet matronly mother it's so amazing the way she delivers this line. She says she doesn't even know the name of the person she'd hire. What's the name? What do you call them? And Louie, in this sort of daze that he's in now, says he has to give her the name Hitmen. She says, oh yes, Hitmen. Mrs. Sherman admits to Louie that this would probably destroy her and her husband's lives. But she says very sweetly, it would be worth it, don't you think? She finally dismisses Louie and admonishes him on the way out to keep it their secret. And he walks back into this living room in a complete daze. You talk about like getting hit with a hammer. He's been hit on the head with a sledgehammer. He doesn't know what to think now. He goes into the living room. Mrs. Sherman brings in the coffee to this assemblage. I think Alex and Mr. Sherman are still talking about fishing or some other. She hands out the cups. And after handing, she gives Louie this cup very specifically. Here's your cup, Louie. Louie insists that Rieger and he switch cups because now he's paranoid that she's going to poison him right in front of everybody.
Great bit of business.
This is such a 180 from where we were to where we got to. Because at this point, I'm just, like you said earlier, this is going on forever. Boy, they had this little secret waiting for us. And I'm so glad because it saved the episode. Zena asks her mother if she enjoyed her talk with Louie. Mrs. Sherman replies very ominously. She says, I'll never forget it. Will you, Louie? It's like everything she's saying has this double meaning now that she is confided to Louie that she will have him killed if he decides to marry Zena. So finally, Louie announces that he needs to leave, which confuses everybody because they've just literally sat down for coffee. But he's so freaked out by it, understandably so, that he's got to get out of there. Zena says something to the effect of, Mom, it would make me so happy if you could give Louie a hug and a kiss. The two of them, feeling the way they do about each other, they squirm next to each other and give each other, like, they barely touch each other's cheeks as we go to end credits. Such a great ending to this episode. I was so happy because this is not an episode. This is another episode that I haven't revisited all that often. So I kind of forgot that all of this transpired, and I was so happy. I was so there for it when it all happened. What did you think of the finale here, the way it all wraps up, Father Malone?
I agree with you. These last two scenes, the kitchen scene and then the entire follow-up scene, now knowing what we know and what has been said and what is now not being said between these two characters, is fucking great. But when the credits came up, I went, what? As much as I'm going to give this audacious ending to their episode its own yellow light, it really frustrated me because it made me rethink the episode. We didn't need Rieger in it at all, and it should have begun with her and Louie going to her parents and her telling Louie, please be civilized. And then Louie just being Louie. And we needed half an episode of this tension between mom and Louie. I don't mean to fan fiction or nothing, but it made me so mad that they came up with something so fucking great in the last 10 seconds of their episode and didn't recognize that the rest of it was sitcom-y bullshit. By the way, the exact same thing happened with Burns meeting his fiance's parents, right?
Well, minus the threat of murder, but yeah, pretty much. There
Right,
was
but if I remember correctly, that episode sucked, and then the parents were so cool and fun and just like do whatever you want to their daughter. Like
Yeah.
they behaved in exactly the opposite way that sitcom parents usually do. It was Dolph Sweet, remember? We were like, where was this for the rest of the fucking episode?
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot about that. And he was, again, it was the parents that redeemed it in their own way. And in this case, I think it's safe to say that Mrs. Sherman is the all-star of this episode, just in the same way that Dolph Sweet was the all-star from and curiously, wasn't that one that involved Alex having to go and kind of intercede on their behalf as well? So it's strange that he's a calling card. It's weird. I never thought of it that way, but
It's
you're
the
right.
same plot.
It
This is
is.
season 2 of the go meet the parents. We need Alex to intervene, and then the last second we're going to be awesome for no good reason.
So that is Louie Meets the Folks. Now, as is our custom, we're going to talk yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
Just a reminder, we're scoring on a scale of 1 to 5 yellow lights. 1 is the worst Taxi episode. 5 is the best Taxi episode. And as is also our custom, we're going to throw it to you, Father Malone. What do you give Louie Meets the Folks?
1 yellow light for the extras. 1 yellow light for Mama Sherman and her casual bent on murder.
I'm with you 150% here. I gave it 2 yellow lights as well. As we've already stated and restated, this is a very basic sitcom premise, but it's redeemed in the final 5 minutes by a very, very dark conclusion. There's nothing much for the other cabbies to do, and it's not really an episode, as I said before, that I'd revisit all that often. But it was a nice dark turn at the end of a fairly dull episode. So 2 yellow lights from myself, 2 yellow lights from Father Malone. That's going to do it for this episode of Night, Mr. Walters. Father Malone, where can the folks find you when you're not clocked into the garage?
Well, like Night Mr. Walters here, I host a show on the Weirding Way Media Network. That's called Midnight Viewing. It's a twice a week podcast. Consistently every week, we have Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. It's a look at newer streaming and in theaters type entertainment. And the other is a rotating show, Anthologies Attack. Me and Antonio Lepore look at anthology films of every kind of genre. And then there's the Horror Anthology podcast, which it alternates with, where we're currently looking at Tales from the Dark Side, the television series from the 1980s. Check me out over there. And you can also find more of my stuff at patreon.com/Father Malone.
And I always give my plug for Dark Destinations, but I'm going to switch it a little bit this week. I'm going to say everything you produce is wonderful, but I am such a newfound fan of the weekly roundup show you do with Ripley Jean. I think it's wonderful. It's just a quick kind of snapshot of stuff you can find on streaming, stuff that's in theaters, stuff to check out that's a very recent sort of thing. I love it. It's such a wonderful encapsulation of what to check out that week. And the comedy is great. I love Ripley Jean. I think it's fantastic. I think everybody should check that out now. It's a great introduction to the world of Father Malone, if I might say. So go check that out, please. And everything else, and check out the Patreon, everything else. I've said it before, Father Malone produces more quality content than anyone else, any other podcasts that I've ever listened to. So check that out. Besides this show, which is, I'm happy you're listening to it anyway. Now, for myself, you can also find me elsewhere in the Weirding Way Network. I'm an occasional guest on the Culture Cast with Chris Dashew. And you can also check me out on Bandcamp. I have a Bandcamp site called hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com. Please check that out if you wish. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again for listening. Please feel free to subscribe to this podcast, write a review, or rate us We'd love to hear from you in any way that you see fit. So for myself and Father Malone, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.